Growing up in the 80s, there were two bands that hailed from Boston that I truly loved. There were the Cars. Man, that first album was amazing. And then there was Boston. And guess what? Their first album was equally incredible as well. Both of them were just fantastic debuts, kind of like they made greatest hits albums on the first try. But we'll forego talking about the Cars today because I want to focus on Tom Scholz and team. Like I said, that first album, well, to this day I can press play and listen to the whole thing without even once feeling the need to skip to the next track. It's just so darn good. It is one of the top-selling debut albums of all time, I believe. And I was pretty young when it came out, but holy cow, I sure would have liked to have caught them live, especially if they had been with Sabbath, Van Halen, and Sammy Hagar. The band's follow-up album, while not quite as strong in my opinion, was still pretty darn good. And that song, Don't Look Back, well, way back then, I was convinced that it was the best song ever written. Anyway, you get it. Fans loved the album and the band hit the road and promised to return to the studio after the tour was over. Only they didn't, or at least it seemed like they didn't. Truth is, they did. They even managed to record a few songs, but one catastrophe after another, plus Tom Scholz being something of a perfectionist, resulted in what seemed like radio silence. And that other band from Boston, well, they were pretty darn busy in the early 80s. In fact, Shake It Up and Heartbeat City really propelled the Cars to musical superstardom. I mean, they were already huge, but they just got huger. Is that a word? And they were able to leverage the success of MTV, especially with some pretty cool videos to support Heartbeat City. And then, right before Live Aid, a friend told me that he had heard a new song by Boston. Some radio station back east was playing a bootleg copy of new music from Tom and team, and it was amazing. I kept my ears peeled, my eyes open, watched a ton of MTV, even hit the local library to read Billboard magazine. This was before the internet, folks. But there was nothing. I would have to wait 2 more years to finally hear the song that my friend had heard. But you know what? It was worth the wait. Amanda, written by Tom Scholz, and from what I understand, performed by Boston's original lineup, at least in those early bootleg recordings. Maybe the final version was with a different set of musicians. Well, anyway, the song turned out to be Boston's biggest hit ever. It was their first #1 song in the US. And it helped ensure that Boston's third album, their first for MCA Records, would be a huge hit. It was sweet victory for Tom Scholz, who had been taken to court by his prior label, CBS Records. Unlike the Cars, Boston chose to ignore MTV and did things old school. They hit the road to support that new album. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the Boston concert supporting Third Stage because I was in another country, Spain to be exact, serving an LDS mission. Mission rules prohibited listening to rock music of any sort. I know, can you believe it? Apparently it took away from the spirit, whatever that means. And while I couldn't see them live, I chose to ignore the mission rules around rock music. For the remainder of my mission, each morning I would listen to a cassette that had the title, Greetings from Uncle Tom in Boston. Thank heavens for Walkmans and the privacy that they afforded a closeted rock and roll fanatic such as myself. I also became something of a dealer, providing bootleg copies of the albums to other missionaries who wisely recognized that rock and roll ain't noise pollution. Hey Brian, hope all is well, buddy. And when I returned home, well, you guessed it, the first concert I saw was Boston. Sure, it was a different band from the one that had released those first 2 albums, but Tom was there, and so was Brad Delp. And man, that guy could sing. Speaking of Brad, all I can say is rest in peace, my friend. Clinical depression is such a horrible thing. We have got to start treating this affliction more seriously, the way we treat cancer and MS. It's a terrible disease that threatens so many people on a daily basis. Boston, with Tom clearly behind the wheel, well, they continue to record and tour, and they're great, they really are. But there was something truly magical about those first 3 albums. I love them so much, and I am very grateful that they were part of my musical landscape growing up. So that's it. One last picture this time from the Don't Look Back album. Alright, now it's your turn. Were you a fan of Boston? If so, please share your memories in the comments section. And while you're at it, I would love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Maybe even share it on Facebook or Twitter, and I would be honored if you would consider subscribing to my channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.